Hi, KRB teachers. Welcome to the first webinar in the series called Being the Best Version of Yourself. Today, we are looking at Remember Your Why and helping you to reflect on your personal motivations for being a teacher. A reminder of the overview of the webinar series, which will this term be split up into 3 modules. Firstly, self, secondly, student, and thirdly, external. Today we are looking at the first in the self module, which is called Remember Your Why. So getting into the introduction, what are we learning about today? Essentially, my role today is to help you to reflect on your intrinsic motivation for teaching to provide strength and facilitate retention. What today will look like is that we'll look at the definition of intrinsic motivation and how it differs to extrinsic motivation, look at general reasons for teaching and why teachers go into the profession, give you an opportunity to reflect on your own reasons. Then we will look at motivation drainers and also looking at your drainers. And finally, we'll look at motivation strengtheners and then giving you an opportunity to look at your motivation strengtheners yourself. And if you haven't already done so, I would ask that you please scan the QR code to help me gather some idea about where your abilities are now, and also give you an opportunity to put your own input as to what you would like to learn about in this series as we go through and develop. I'll just give you a moment to do so. Thank you for completing that. That really helps. So starting with intrinsic motivation. And what is actually intrinsic motivation? Deci and Ryan first defined it in their self-determination theory, or a variation of in the 1970s, which is doing something because it is inherently interesting or enjoyable to you. These are internal drives that inspire us to behave in certain ways and include things like our core values, interests, and our personal sense of morality. So as we looked at, intrinsic particularly is things like purpose, interest, competence, and autonomy. This is different to extrinsic motivation, which are factors which are externally motivated. So these things would be things like money, promotions, pay rises, and rewards. As you will recall, last webinar series, we looked at the definition of mental well-being. And I'm bringing this up again just to remind you of it, that it's about being in control in the present moment and in reality. In particular, the feeling of being in control is similar to what we get from intrinsic motivation. That means it's actually in your power or control in order to make your own choices and give yourself agency. So it helps you to focus on what is in your control in terms of teaching, and these are the drivers that are more motivating to you rather than things that are outside your control, that things like that we looked at, such as reward and pay. So moving on to reasons for teaching. Just to start with, I would like you to take a moment to think about, why did you become a teacher and enter the profession in the first place? When was it perhaps? Where were you? Who inspired you or encouraged you? What drew you to it and kept you there? And why, and perhaps how you ended up becoming a teacher. So just thinking about that, and you can start to write some notes on the corresponding downloadable PDF that we have that links up with this week's webinar. There are, of course, reasons why teachers become teachers more generally, and there's quite a few here, so I want to take you through a few of these. Firstly, and you may have thought of some of these or can add to your list, but basically passion for education is something that we hear teachers are obviously interested in and really love that, have that genuine love for learning and desire to share their knowledge with students. It also may be about making a difference. There's an opportunity to have a positive impact on your students and also contribute to them and their growth and how they can influence then society. It may be about inspiring children. You may have had influential educators yourselves, and you want to pay it forward and inspire children as almost role models and mentors. It could also be a love for young people, the energy, creativity, the growth mindset, more often than not, and curiosity that comes with young people. That may be another reason which you led to your teaching career. Job satisfaction. It can be a very highly rewarding profession, opportunities for personal and professional growth, excuse me, and also seeing your students succeed, overcome challenges and reach goals. It could also be about the stability and security that comes with being a teacher. It's quite a stable choice when there is things like full-time employment. Everyone wants and needs a teacher, as we've found and seen going through post-COVID. So from that perspective, there is a high demand, and that could give you a reason also to continue teaching. Lifelong learning for you personally, that you also have that growth mindset, appreciate the intellectual stimulation and of course growth that comes from teaching and learning from children as well as teaching them. It could be the social justice imperative, something that's obviously very strong at KRB particularly, and really helping to promote equity and social justice. It could be also ensuring that children from all different backgrounds and walks of life have an opportunity to advance themselves through education. And it could be having a sense of community. Again, KRB is very strong at this, and the community is something that drives not only the current generation of teachers such as you, but also previous and past, and likewise it instills that same sort of thing for the students. So thinking about your reasons again, I would like you to recall why you became and remain a teacher. They may be ones you thought of before, or they may be in addition to these ones that we have just looked at. What I would like you to do is to bring out that one-pager fact sheet that we've got for this webinar series and write down there, what are your reasons for teaching? Okay, and on the flip side, we've got motivation drainers. Obviously, teaching is a highly demanding profession. I've experienced a huge amount of teachers that come in as clients to me personally. Nurses and teachers seem to be the key professions that people come to, if not children. So that does speak to just how draining, psychologically, emotionally, but also physically and logistically very demanding the teaching is. So thinking again about what drains you as a teacher. You may also want to reflect on specific instances when you felt drained, where have you been, who or what types of potentially students or key stakeholders might be draining, how you end up coming to navigate those drainers as well. So just thinking about that for a moment. So factors that drain motivation for teaching more generally, and these could be in addition or already covered in that you've just thought of. Key things we hear from the research, particularly this come out of Monash University research in 2022, things like no appreciation and respect, unmanageable workloads, your own stress, anxiety and burnout, behavioural challenges of students and their mental illness, also potentially the lack of student resilience, complex learning needs of students, parent and guardian issues, and of course the ever increasing data and administration that comes with being a teacher. Thinking now about your own drainers, would like you to recall what drains you personally when teaching. What did you write down or think about before? Are there any of these reasons, in addition or otherwise, that also drain you when you're teaching? I'll just give you a moment now to add to that worksheet and write down what are your main drains for teaching. So unfortunately, drainers are inevitable in teaching at certain times, and like any profession, they are sometimes particularly beyond our control. But how can we focus on motivation strengtheners? So these are things that can help actually strengthen your desire to continue to be a teacher. So thinking again about what strengthens your motivation to teach. When would this be? You can think of particular instances. Where were you? Who was involved? What type of students, colleagues, leaders at the school, parents and guardians, maybe? What happened? Why are these things particularly motivating to you? And how do you navigate those drainers and add these sorts of strengtheners to ensure that your more overall well-being is at an advantage when teaching? So, further ways to strengthen intrinsic motivation for teaching that you may have already thought of, but in addition to that, and again from research, are things to reflect on things such as, to reflect on success stories. So, really think about the students that have had great success, which gave you that energy and excitement for teaching. Celebrating small wins, and this is a really important one, which I don't think we do, none of us, regardless of whether you're a teacher or not, in day to day, which is stopping and thinking actually really what went well today. And there could just be the smallest thing. Connecting with other colleagues, it's probably good to share your successes and wins, but also frustrations with peers that can understand. Also developing professionally yourself, so upskilling and having that intellectual stimulation, if that is something that drives you to the profession, for instance. Seeking student feedback, again, so you feel like you can improve yourself and constantly evolve and develop, that it's not always just you imparting knowledge, for instance, upon students. Set your own personal goals, and goals, when we achieve them, of course, can be very rewarding. Also creating a visual board, almost like a mood board, to help support those personal goals. Visualization has been found in research to be very empowering and motivating. Practice self-care, which we will look at in particular in the coming weeks. What does that actually look like? And of course, remembering your why and returning back to why did you enter the profession in the first place, which you've already thought about and written down. Collectively, all these things can, of course, strengthen your own desire to continue teaching and remain interested in the profession. So, thinking about your personal motivation strengtheners. Recall what strengthens your motivation to teach. So, thinking about what you were popped up in your mind before. Also, in addition to that, are there any of these sorts of things that really do strengthen your desire to teach, particularly in those times when we're drained and have many obstacles and challenges and difficult and tricky stakeholders to deal with? And just here, what I would love you to do is to now bring out your worksheet and pop in what are your main motivation strengtheners. They could be ones you've thought of before, or they, of course, could be ones that we've just looked at. So, to summarise, what did we hopefully learn about today? You may have become a teacher personally for many reasons. These may include, and of course are not limited to, a passion for education, making a difference, inspiring children, satisfaction, security, and stability, and that social justice is imperative, or being part of a community. It may include no respect, unmanageable workload, stress, anxiety, student mental illness, behavioural challenges, lack of resilience and complex learning needs, and parent and guardian issues. Given these drainers, ways to strengthen your own intrinsic motivation for teaching include reflecting on success stories, celebrating those small wins, connecting with colleagues, engaging in professional development, seeking student feedback, setting goals, practicing self-care, and remembering ultimately your why, and why did you go into the profession in the first place. Finally, some resources. Always good to have on hand some emergency contact numbers if you yourself or you believe a student needs them. Maximinds is always available 24/7. You've got real-time support there by using evidence-based tools and resources. They can help you in real time in the classroom, but also give you the option to refer to a psychologist, again, either for yourself or your students. And access for that subscription model is free for you for KRB using the promo code KRB 2024. Here we have a summary of my contact details. If you would like to ever contact me, please do. There's my email. You can email me or call me, and a QR code in case you would like to log on to the Maximinds teacher platform. Thanks, KRB teachers. I hope you enjoyed today's session and look forward to seeing you again next week.